The silent treatment. What is it? Well, it's the process of actively avoiding a conversation. Now, keep in mind that this is an active process. It's not some monotonous thing you do accidentally. No, this is 100% intentional of silence. So, like, what's the difference between the silent treatment and just normal silence? Well, as I stated before, the silent treatment is an active process. So it's an active process, and you're going out of your way to make sure that the other person knows that you're mad at them. It's very deliberate with how it's used. Now, the silent treatment doesn't actually have to be silence, go figure, but it can be just being aloof with your presence in a sense. It's like whenever you ask somebody in a question, like an important question, like, hey, what's wrong? And they're like, I don't know, you know. That's classified as the silent treatment. Another way that you can be using the silent treatment without being silent is the fable. You know, basically you're just being very passive aggressive with your presence, your vibe, and your attitude towards the person you are upset with. And that's what you're trying to convey, the fact that you are indeed upset with them. It's kind of hard to tell. Actually, no, it's not. It's pretty easy to tell whenever somebody's giving you the silent treatment, but some of the signs are that they only avoid you. So like you'll talk to them, they'll be like, and then they'll go to like other people and talk to them normally, like they aren't mad at all. Like they're, hi, how are you? You know, it's that type of stuff. And the biggest thing is that you have to put an effort into letting the other person know that you're actually upset with them. You have to make an effort to do the silent treatment. It takes effort, and I don't know why people actually use the silent treatment. It's personally not my forte. And that brings me to my next point. Why do we actually use the silent treatment? We have a whole different way of communicating with our partner called talking. I don't know why people would default to the silent treatment, but we're going to talk about why it's actually used. So we're going to go over what it's used for, the silent treatment, like why it's used. And it's never really malicious at first. The main reason why people use the silent treatment in the beginning is because they get flustered. They don't know how to like express themselves, so they shut down. And it's a very scary process because whenever somebody shuts down because they're too flustered, they tend to start this cycle of self-hatred with themselves. They tend to block out the world and everything around them, so that way they can collect themselves, you know? It's not really malicious, that's what I'm trying to get at. So another reason why people use the silent treatment is they need a way to cool off. You know, they just allow the time to pass so that they can process what exactly they're arguing about, what's been said, what they need to say, and they just take a step back from the argument, the conversation, if it's too much for them, so that they can collect their thoughts and know what to say next. And usually it works out how it's supposed to. You know, you think of the right things to say, you think about what could be doing better, you think of what you really need to say, what's going on. And that's I wouldn't say a good way to use the silent treatment, because I don't think there is a good way, but it's one of the more peaceful ways. It's one of the more well-intended ways to use the silent treatment. And those are the two main non-malicious way to use the silent treatment. Although there are very malicious ways to use the silent treatment. Sometimes the silent treatment can be used badly. And this is where it gets like abusive in a way. So sometimes it's used as a manipulation tactic in order to get like power and control in your relationship. This can throw off the power dynamic in said relationship. Instead of it being roughly equal, it'll favor the person using the silent treatment like drastically too. And this causes the relationship to be heavily one-sided, you know? it'll be the person who's using the silent treatment usually getting what they want, and the person who's receiving the silent treatment trying to make up for what they did wrong. Even if they may not know what they did wrong, they'll try to make up for it in just about any way they can. Another way that it can be used abusively is stonewalling. Now you may be thinking, Gavin, what the heck is stonewalling? That is whenever you use the silent treatment over like days, sometimes weeks in extreme cases, which is messed up. Some people actually do it. They'll just stonewall their partner. And I want you to think about why that's bad. And I'm going to tell you now. You don't communicate. The other person doesn't know why you're mad at them, assuming you're the one using the silent treatment. They don't know why you're mad at them, but like you're still ignoring them, and it's quite messed up, dubiously messed up even. So now we're going to reverse the roles. You are receiving the silent treatment from your partner, and we're going to talk about how that feels for you. So receiving the silent treatment makes you feel unwanted. Like if you were to receive the silent treatment, like it makes sense too. It's like imagine you're talking to somebody and you're trying to talk to them. You're like, hey, what's up? Why are we arguing? And they're like, they pull one of those numbers. I know I've used that bit like 3 different times, but it's funny. And this has negative consequences for you receiving it, or anybody receiving it for that matter. You can have a lower self-esteem because of it. You can have feelings of unwantingness. You may start to induce in self-harm because you feel so unwanted. You feel worthless, and in extreme cases, you might off yourselves, or the other person either might off themselves. Think about what you're doing. The person receiving it, you in this case, will do anything to stop receiving silent treatment. You'll try to make up for it in any way you can. And this can range from a number of things, like buying food to buying drugs. It can tip the scale a lot. Like you'll do just about anything to make up to your partner and try to, fix the problem. Because you don't know what's going on. They won't tell you, so, logically, you think, well, if I do this for them, they'll do this for me, right? Like a balanced relationship. But no. And usually they'll do anything to make up for whatever they think they did because they're committed to the relationship, I'm committed to a relationship when I'm in it, and I bet you are too. So what does commitment actually look like? Well, it's like buying your partner gifts, making time for them, going on dates, all the stuff that makes me puke. But it's really in the communication with it all. More committed partners are willing to have these hard conversations about the relationship. Like where it's going, where it needs to go, that type of stuff. And while on the contrary, less committed partners are more willing to ignore the problem. They're not as willing to have these conversations. They would rather let it blow away in the wind. And they're also more likely to use the silent treatment. If you're using the silent treatment, think about how committed you really are to the relationship. And if you're receiving the silent treatment, don't think too much about that. So the silent treatment doesn't have to be with only relationships. It can also work in parent-child dynamics, like a parent giving their kid the silent treatment, which is no. So if a child receives the silent treatment from their parents, they tend to have a really hard time socially, like in social environments, so like school, the grocery store, music class. They tend to have a lot harder time, like making friends and stuff. Not only that, but they also tend to lose the feeling of control in their lives. And this one right here has very bad consequences, They can get into trouble with the law, start having some drug use, self-harm even, suicide in extreme cases. It's a very, very, very slippery slope that they go down. I didn't expect this video to get so deep. I wrote the notes, but like, still, like, it's really bad for whenever children actually do receive the silent treatment. So why do parents actually give their kid the silent treatment? They think it's a better alternative than like yelling at their kid, you know, or spanking them in a way, because they feel like it wouldn't be as abusive for whenever they need to discipline their kids, you know. They won't really remember it as traumatically. Problem with that is that it's still like neglectful, you know. It's not really a form of discipline if they don't know what they're being disciplined for, and it's still not a form of communication, which is what people need for their relationships, for like any kind of relationship, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, parent, child, friends, you know, you need communication in order to make it work, you know, like this. Okay, it's that time in the video where I mansplain why communication is important. So why do you think communication is important? Because you figure shit out. Adoy, you know, you have no communication. You don't know what's going on with the other person. You don't know what's going on with your beloved, or they don't know what's going on with you. A lot of people use the silent treatment to like hold back that negative feeling, so that way it doesn't become a problem. And the problem with that is that feeling actually manifests inside of you until like a boiling point, where it then decides to, you know, because you can hold on to negative feelings so long, but it'll keep growing and growing and growing until you finally release it. You know, it doesn't actually solve anything for you to keep that negative feeling in, or for your partner to keep that negative feeling in. And receiving the silent treatment, this part's cool. Receiving the silent treatment actually has a ton of negative consequences, like physical consequences. You know Amish people, right? You know, the guys who churn butter and have the top hats. They have this thing called shunning. Whenever somebody, it's like Amish jail. Whenever somebody acts out, they won't send them to jail, but they'll shun them out of the community for a set amount of time. And what that does is it increases their risk of getting sick. People who get shunned out of the village, like say Jebediah decides to go, I don't know, steal a horse, and he gets shunned out of the village for it, his chances of getting sick increase by 100% because he got shunned. He doesn't have any communication. Everybody walks by him like he's an object, you know? It's like being in the friend zone. And another fun fact is if you're receiving the silent treatment from somebody else, you have a higher chance of getting cancer. It's not really a fun fact, but it's something that you probably should know. Nobody wants cancer. It's like one of the top killers in the US, maybe. I don't know when I'm talking about cancer. Okay, few closing statements before we actually end off the video. Don't use the silent treatment. Be an adult and like talk to people, you know, like adult things, and you know, just think, you know, communication is key in a relationship. Bet you never heard that before. Well, now you have no excuse. So yeah, if you're ever thinking about using the silent treatment, don't. You know, an argument, like a screaming match, is better than the silent treatment. You're more likely to stay in a relationship if you guys are screaming at each other than if somebody was silent. So at least you get shit figured out. All the cards are on the table. And yeah, thanks for watching.